Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Jessica Clemons, and Wednesday Season 2 Part 1 dropped last week, and boy, is there a lot of stuff going on. We've got Tyler back, we're meeting Grandma, and someone keeps using a murder of crows to literally do some murder. Downright, honestly, poetic. I kind of really like it. There's so many little details the writers, the production team, and designers put into the show because you know they can hide a lot in this show, so let's get into it all. We'll go over the ending, what it all means, and point out all those little details you might have missed. But first, before we get into it, make sure to check out the latest and greatest in New Rockstars merch. We actually have Wednesday merch right now. You can get your own Wednesday shirt, and then you'll have it in time for the part 2, because we all know part 2 is coming September 3rd. Or you can get this alien merch. I have great alien merch. I love this merch. Go to nerdride.shop is the best way to support the channel and look good while doing it. All right, now let's get into it. Episode 1 of Season 2 is titled Here We Woe Again, written by Al Goff and Miles Miller, yet directed again by Tim Burton. If you hadn't noticed, every episode of Wednesday, even the ones from the first season, always has woe in the title. As Wednesday says, it was an eventful summer, and we left last season with the school being canceled for the rest of the semester and everyone going back home for the summer. However, the stalker we're dealing with this season had begun reaching out at the end of last season's finale. As the camera pulls out, My Favorite Things begins playing by the Lennon Sisters, which according to the music supervisor, Nicole Weisberg, was a collaborative pick with the producers for its more unique spin than the original. We jumped 6 weeks earlier, and originally, according to the writers of this episode, there was a bigger scene here where there was a dog napper and Wednesday was at Starbucks and there was a barista that just couldn't get her name right, and they kept referring to her as Wendy with an I, and then she left with Lurch and he woke up in a dumpster with her name tattooed on his forehead, and it was a lot of stuff, but they removed all those bits. We see that Wednesday is using the talisman that we saw from last season. It was given to her by Morticia, her mother, and Wednesday used it as a necklace to contact Goody. Later, Goody used that necklace to pass through her and heal her as well. We then get a glimpse inside Goody's book. Although our translation of Latin was very, very rough, we could translate a little bit, and it gave us a sense of how Season 2 will unfold, rather than it being just a collection of random spells. It says, look at the eyes of the raven, the innate charmer, and the events and the future events and the fates of the touched, which could be emphasizing the dangers around Wednesday's powers. How Ophelia was seen as a crow, the same powers that they share could be driving them both to madness, with sinister intentions with the avian killer and Nevermore. Wealth is sought, doves are willingly handed over to the raven, the world is purified, fire is the lamp of the enchanter is quiet within the purified world, fire is kindled in the middle, wealth is enchanted and bright and light and hidden under shadows, the eyes scan everything with a strong mind and a beautiful soul. This could be setting the stage for like deception, especially of those close, which we'll be seeing hopefully unravel between Morticia, her mother, and Wednesday. But the power to see the face of the world and to know its fate, its true herald, and he knows that some fate must not be destroyed, which I believe highlights Wednesday's devotion to save others, how much she does actually care for her mother, and it is especially, even if it's altering their natural course. It goes on to say, act as an enchanter, look at yourself with understanding, admire your image like a hammer, and still a broken appearance, know it well. Beware of the other child and the false ways of life, which will soon lead you to another path no matter how you choose. Therefore, two is not always worth one. This other child and false way of life could be a reference to Pugsley and the zombie, but also could be about Stonehurst and his daughter both playing with life and death. All fixations, whoever casts them, always rebound on the enchanter and often bring pain and hidden harm to their well-being, which could apply to the inevitable downfall and sufferings for those who try to manipulate or control others, which I think speaks to Stonehurst the most and how much he's affected the lives of the outcast and now suffers from the very thing he tried to control. Seeing as it talks about the power of fixations, which can see the truth or make something real, it's hard to really tell, but demand a higher price, this could definitely be talking about Wednesday's power. It seems like the psychic visions are actually taking a toll on her and maybe the world as well, and that she'll have to pay back in some way. A sorceress may freely cast fixations against any person or thing, yet they cannot control how the debt is repaid to the world, nor can even the most dangerous sorceresses bend the returning force, nor can they catch it unless they lessen their own harm. No sorceress entirely escapes the consequences, and even the most learned cast fixations only rarely. A victim must be chosen, the outcome prescribed, and the blood of an exile who honors the seer must be offered to cast the fixation. Although I attributed a lot of this text to Season 2 overall, the text in part details the creation of the Nightshades, or the Shadow Society that we know Goody created to help the outcast. But it also talks about the eyes of the raven, having the ability to see the future, how fire is a tool for the raven, and sacrifices of the dove must be made to the raven to help purify the world. From this, and from everything else in these 4 episodes, it also could point at Barry Dort being involved with the murders. Barry has fire powers, but based on how obsessed he is with outcast pride, I think he was born a normie and probably got his powers from Lois. The 2 Crow murders we get this season were both on normies who were investigating Lois, which Barry would want to cover up if that's how he got his fire powers. Which also brings me back to the fact that the crows could be ravens, as this ties into Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. This is the same poem that Nevermore comes from, but they do refer to them as crows throughout the show. I do think the book is a clue though, because Wednesday says the book had all the answers or something similar to like that, and then showing this scene, and I think the filmmakers want us to see that and they want us to know what they're doing. So back to the story at hand. Wednesday is after the Kansas City Scalper, and we get this really cute black and white flashback of young Wednesday doing her investigation for show and tell. The victims on the board are dressed the same way as the dolls at the table, and we learn later he makes these dolls as like a gift, and he makes one for Wednesday as well, and he did the same for the other victims. One of the dolls has one eye, and this we believe, you know, just foreshadows the stalker crow murderer that we're gonna see later on. We see the 11th victim with the bowling ball that Thing will be snatching from evidence. According to writers, this scene was shot in the production office, and this is a big nod to the Big Lebowski, which both Big Lebowski and Wednesday season 2 both star Steve Buscemi. This bowling ball also has a duck in it, and birds are very important this season. She begins her journey to Kansas via Newark Airport. This is located in New Jersey, and we don't really know where the family resides in the Wednesday series, I don't think. However, the 90s Addams family did reside in New Jersey because the Addams family cartoonist, Charles Addams, is originally from Westfield, New Jersey. Also, the man running TSA at the X-ray machine is actually the writer Alfred Goff. We're now in Kansas City, Missouri, and doesn't this scene kind of look like a rundown version of The Neighborhood in Edward Scissorhands? Just a very time-worn version with colorful tints. A reminder again that this episode, like the first episode of last season, is directed by Tim Burton, so I expect to see some Tim Burton-esque inspirations or just natural Tim Burton-esque things to appear. The Kansas City Scalper is played by Haley Joel Osment, who's great at playing a bad guy. Also, he's best known for his line, "I see dead people," which just so happens to be what Wednesday can do. His new job is Chet's pooch pampering, and I checked the website that's attached to the van, and there was nothing there. I also think we'll return back to him because why cast Haley Joel Osment for such a small role when this is Haley Joel Osment? Wednesday touches him and then sees the vision of the dolls and her eyes start to bleed. They needed a visual representation that her powers were glitching now, so they decided on black tears. Initially, she also had black veins accompanying the black tears, but they wanted to simplify everything once it hit VFX, so it was removed. They aim to surpass the comedic excellence of the Piranhas from the first season, if you remember. So Thing and the Kansas City Scalper are really just going at it. And also, essentially, Haley Joel Osment is fighting literally nothing. Some parts are CG and some are the man who plays Thing, but for the most part, Haley Joel Osment is just wrestling himself. The actor playing Thing is actually Victor Darabantu, and according to Netflix, to keep Thing's makeup intact on filming days, Victor did everything just single-handed. I guess there's a pun intended there. Then we get into the title sequence, which is a little different from the first season, where they both have the same song and the same initial intros with Wednesday stepping outside the Nevermore gates. Instead of her typewriter, we get the mask of the stalker with their threats circling it. A shattering of a glass heart that's shattered by electricity, which I think is a reference to Slurp's heart, now replaces the Nightshade Society book. We still get Wednesday's cello being played by a knife, but now it's electrified. As we know, Pugsley will be a bigger part of the story this season, and he's acquired the same electric touch his uncle has, so I presume it has to do with that familial static shock. The Nevermore clock numbers, like a spiral staircase, are now replaced with the knives that transition into the spiral clock numbers with things stepping up on them. No more shattered glass transitioning into the girl's window with a giant spider. This time, it pulls out to the clock with the spider. Clocks are big things this season, especially in relation to Slurp, whose heart ticks. We now pull out to see Thing's new house and no more graveyard dusting away, but a doll with a teddy bear decapitated in an electric chair. The doll's little sad babyface bow tie is the same bow tie that was on the doll that Thing jumped out at the beginning of the episode. In the first title sequence, it was all revealed to be in the crystal ball, whereas now it's a black and white tent for the school's little fair that we're gonna see in the teaser for part 2. We originally saw a decapitated bear here, now we get a beautiful skull with roses on fire and a crow flying out of its mouth. I think this all references more events we'll see in part 2. We see a kind of Dia de los Muertos party in the part 2 teaser. Instead of the Venus flytrap, we now get the principal's office that has the Medusa fireplace. We now get the skull tree in the woods that Pugsley will wander into. Then it ends with Wednesday, and we see our little girl's eyes, but instead of the dark, eerie stare back from the first season, we now get Wednesday crying black tears. We see a newspaper article for the Scalper being scalped in Kansas City Sentinel. Un Mundo Raro by Chavela Vargas plays, and her song La Llorona played in the first episode of the first season to set the tone between Wednesday and her mother. If you zoom in on the newspaper under the photos of LaTroy's victims, it says that they were all connected by similar hairstyles, and I mean, I don't think that's necessarily true because they all looked a little different, especially Wednesday with the pigtails. Wednesday's faded wallpaper is a throwback to the design of her room in some of the original Addams Family comics, and I found this image here that shows a similar wallpaper with an alligator chasing a human. They're on their way back to Jericho, back to Nevermore Academy, and the beginning of the end really starts here with Wednesday's new mystery. Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer plays when Greg and Debbie hug here. And this man, who we later learn is Carl Bradbury, is a private investigator working with Galpin, and he's being taunted, stalked, and eventually murdered by a murder of crows. He says this:
They're on to me. If I don't make it, the evidence is safe at the bullpen.
which we'll get into a little bit later, the bullpen of it all. Noah found a collection of crow and raven calls, and these definitely sound like a deeper, throatier raven call to him, but I guess we'll just call them crows because they're calling them crows. As a note, just because I have an immense weird amount of knowledge for like weird animal facts, a good way to tell a raven and a crow apart, other than from their voices, the fact that ravens can mimic actual words or just things that they like, you can also see the difference in their size. Ravens can also be seen solo as opposed to crows that are usually a gather or in a pack, hence the term a murder of crows. Additionally, ravens have a diamond-like shape to their tails, while crows have like a flatter, slightly rounder edge. I just knew this because I just know weird facts about birds and other animals. We return to Nevermore, and Pugsley now attends as well, and Wednesday is of course a celebrity after everything that happened in the first season. One of the first fangirls we meet is Agnes DeMille, played by Evie Templeton, and Agnes DeMille is also the name of a famous ballerina and dancer and choreographer, and we don't know if they specifically named her after that Agnes. However, choreographer Agnes is famous for Oklahoma, which this Agnes kind of looks like she could be in, so I don't know if this is like deliberate shade or just wanting to serve Wednesday realness. Summer nights used to be the worst. I'd lay awake covered in a thin layer of sweat no matter what the AC was doing because I had the wrong sheets. I'm smarter now, better now. Now I keep cool all night thanks to Miracle Made sheets. Miracle Made's fabric was inspired by NASA, so it's thermoregulating. That means you'll sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. And these sheets are crazy comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. Plus, Miracle Made sheets are infused with silver that prevents bacterial growth. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne, so sleeping on Miracle Made sheets is good for your skin too. Upgrade your sleep as the weather heats up. Go to trymiracle.com/newrockstars to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo, New Rockstars, at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/newrockstars and use the code NEWROCKSTARS to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/newrockstars to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring today's video. Later, when Wednesday sets off a crossbow trap, she tries to use her power to see who the stalker is, but she can't because Agnes can turn invisible. Fun fact, they're good with their timing. We meet the siren, Bianca Barclay, played by Joy Sunday, who also gets a bigger, deeper role this season and we'll get into once it comes up. Then we meet Steve Buscemi, the new cast member, replacing the old principal. He's playing Principal Dort. He's purposely designed to be based on Edgar Allan Poe, even with his hair. He says he wants to return Nevermore to the glory days, which, what exactly does that mean? Because I think he's suspicious and we should keep clocking it. Enid returns as well, and I like that she got Wednesday a shirt from Lupin Palooza. It's around the exact same time as Lollapalooza, because I think Lollapalooza ended last week, so I don't think they did it on purpose, but great timing. Pugsley is bunked with Eugene, who called the bees to help at the end of the last season, and they're in Caliban Hall. The 4 Nevermore houses are actually inspired by Shakespearean characters. Ophelia Hall is a nod to Hamlet. Caliban Hall is a nod to the characters from The Tempest. We also see Caliban around the fireplace along with Be Not Afeared, which is from The Tempest, and of course, Thesby Hall and Pug Hall are both references to A Midsummer's Night Dream. We also get the Lago Tower, and Lago is the villain of Othello. You'll see their sigils also on their clothes that reflect their halls, but in episode 3 during the Zephyr games, you can really get a better look at their clothes perfectly with their sigils. Then we learn that Xavier is heading to an academy in Switzerland for boys, and the actor playing Xavier, Percy Hines White, departed the show following its first season after he was accused of sexual misconduct on X in January of 2023. Hines has addressed the allegations, however, it doesn't seem like the actor is returning, although his presence is still vaguely there. Reichenbach is also another literary reference. The Reichenbach Falls is a waterfall in Switzerland and was the location of Sherlock Holmes' death, though Sir Arthur Conan Doyle would later revive the character. Marilyn Thornhill's old room is now offered to Morticia for the night, and Wednesday mentions her aunt Ophelia. Ophelia Frump originally was the sister of Morticia Addams in most of the Addams family backstory, however, we just haven't met her in the show yet. When we get to the exterior shot of this cabin, it says Rotwood Cottage. Lady Gaga is appearing in season 2, part 2 as the character Rosalind Rotwood, a legendary Nevermore student who crosses paths with Wednesday according to Netflix. She doesn't seem to be linked to any other original Wednesday characters and might have just been made for the show, but she does sing and dance in her episode. Back at the crime scene, we meet Richie Santiago again, the deputy who worked alongside Galpin last season, and this season they've replaced Sheriff Galpin completely after everything that went down. At the crime scene, Wednesday confronts Galpin, who is trying to get to the bottom of this murder, but she turns away, yet she's still a bit intrigued. Also, she says this:
"It's a shame your keen psychological insight couldn't help you save your own son."
Which, ooh, that's gotta hurt. That's low. That's low blow. Back with the boys, they tell their story about another boy with a bad heart. He creates a heart to replace his old one, and in this flashback, there are a couple things I like to flag. Netflix has noted how this season draws inspiration from such classic films like Frankenstein, Night of the Living Dead, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and the scene gives Frankenstein realness. We also get some more Poe references here because the skull tree with a body buried beneath it is likely a reference to the Gold Bug, a story written by Poe where a literal skull and a tree marked with the location of two bodies buried beneath it, along with a wealth of treasure. The second reference is actually the ticking heart. This goes back to the Telltale Heart, where the narrator murders an old man and hides his body in the floorboards. But as the cops ask them questions about the murder, the narrator begins to hallucinate the beating of the heart and confesses to their crime. The cafe or food stand that we see in the middle of the courtyard is also of the same reference. There's damage done to the top of the clock tower that we saw earlier, and now I assume it's because of this idiot that caused the damage per the flashback story. We'll later learn that this is Slurp, the zombie. So based on the fact that Slurp recognized Stonehurst, I think we can assume that the hospital he was really at was Willow Hills Asylum. And I'm thinking maybe he didn't design the heart himself, but was perhaps one of the experiments done on as a patient. The stop motion animation was done by Mackinnon and Saunders, who were the talented team that brought us such works as Corpse Bride and Fantastic Mr. Fox and even Bob the Builder. I like that Dort, when talking to Bianca, points out that Edgar Allan Poe on his wall and he looks exactly like him. And it creates a small home for Thing in his own spot and their spot. And according to Netflix, making the intricate objects in Thing's apartment required hand stitching and laser cutting. In this scene, you can see it better now, but Enid's nails are freaking long, but they're also very colorful. They start with strong tones and they'll get lighter as the season continues, which could reflect her transformation as she's still navigating her wolf puberty, or could foreshadow that she's gonna die soon. I don't know. I don't think she's gonna die, and if she does die, I feel like she can be brought back. But I think the nails mean something. Wednesday starts performing the Dance of the Knights from Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet. According to the music producer, Jenna Ortega actually learns the pieces so she can accurately perform them in the right spots on the instrument. We see Morticia opening her sister's journal with the crow marking on the outside. Inside are drawings or etchings of a woman screaming and written over and over, repeating black tears like a woman descending into madness. We watch Pugsley revive the tarantula because our man is about to play real Frankenstein. Thing puts a pinky ring on with a knight chess piece on it, and this perhaps has some personal connection to Thing that we just haven't learned yet. And Galpin drinks himself to death while watching home videos of his son. Wednesday is interrupted by Miss Capri,
the new head of music,
played by Billie Piper, and her style is also inspired by musician Florence Welch. We think she might be an avian, but her first classical album was called Wolf Howl, so maybe she is a werewolf like people have suggested online. But also her character being a once famous musician might be a nod to Billie Piper's start as also a pop star.
I didn't realize I had any fans left.
She's still very famous. She's just, quit music after getting famous at like 15 and started focusing on acting, so that's what I mean. Dort calls these children the Da Vinci's, and there's a bunch of different groups that we're actually exploring this season, and the Da Vinci's feel like artists that have some form of levitation or just telekinesis. In this scene, this could be Socrates, Wednesday's pet octopus that is painted on the wall in the background of her attic at home. It could also be Aristotle, who was Pugsley's octopus from the 1960s show, and in the original comic, he was painted on the foot of her bed. Later at the event, after the Alma Mater song, the principal plays Dancing in the Dark by Bruce Springsteen, which is actually pretty wild because the whole "you can't start a fire without a spark" line, which is what they all want to do, which could kill Wednesday in this moment.
They're gonna light this thing any second!
It's all on the nose. We also learn his powers is pyrokinesis and the ability to create fire. And this is yet another example of where I think he was born a normie. What could be more normie behavior than rocking out to Bruce Springsteen? And then he keeps saying stuff like fellow outcasts and I just don't know. I think it's suspicious. I think we should all be suspicious. He also abolishes the nightshades, which if I'm right about how he got his powers from Lois, he likely did this because he doesn't want the nightshades finding out about him or the abused outcast. After creating a mural and applauding Wednesday and her friends for saving the school, Wednesday sets that mural on fire in anger, not wanting to be loved or cheered for, not wanting to be put on a pedestal. And this scene is really giving Wednesday at the first Thanksgiving and Addams Family Values, just setting everything ablaze after a glorious speech. Pugsley goes to the skull tree alone and accidentally shocks the ground when he falls, which leads to reanimating Slurp. So now we've got a murderous zombie on the loose. Enid catches up with Wednesday and gets a vision, and her eyes leak black again, and in this vision, it's a bunch of crows and a tombstone for Enid, and she screams, "I died because of you!" Great, so now Enid's probably gonna die. Episode 2 is titled The Devil You Woe, a play off The Devil You Know, and this little title page gives us a little knife because we're gonna end the episode almost impaled to death. Netflix flagged multiple items in Morticia's cottage are a nod to Addams Family TV series from the 1960s. There's a stuffed bear in here, an Iron Maiden, and a taxidermy tortoise, and a fan bag chair. She stops at Galpin's house, and the windows are boarded up, and people have tagged the house with "guilty" and "evil lives here." Inside, we find Galpin dead, eyes gone, just like Brady, and the crow launches from his mouth. And then freeze.
You're under arrest.
Wednesday gets arrested. Later, we meet Slurp, and we even see his homemade heart. The character is being entirely played by someone, even here, and it's Owen Painter. It took between 3 and 5 hours every day to prepare Owen to play Slurp the zombie, and the process originally took about 10 hours according to Netflix. We learned today is prank day at Nevermore, so everyone's gonna be yanking our chains this episode.
Got ya! Happy prank day!
We're outside for prank day, and You Really Got Me by the Kinks begins playing. We know why they're playing that, because you got me. Prank day. Then we meet another new cast member, Christopher Lloyd, playing Professor Orloff, a man whose head is preserved in a jar. As you know, Christopher Lloyd also played Uncle Fester in the 90s Addams Family movies, and it's just great to see him return. Professor Orloff tells Wednesday she's looking for an avian.
We haven't had an avian enrolled for at least 10 years.
So we're one step closer to figuring out who the stalker and killer is. With Morticia and Bianca at the cottage, she's showing off the shrunken heads.
That's Uncle Vasco on the left.
Actor Luis Guzman was scanned, and one of the heads is based on his likeness. Wednesday takes Enid's place in driving school, and I like that the name here is Third Wheel Driving School.
I'm the captain of this ship, young lady.
And when she does the I'm the captain now,
I'm the captain now.
it's just a great moment. Wednesday then drives to Willow Hill Psychiatric Hospital where Tyler's being kept, and this is where we meet Judy, played by Heather Matarazzo from The Princess Diaries. Then we meet Dr. Fairbairn, played by Tawny Newton from Westworld. Wednesday meets Tyler again, and let me tell you, nothing good comes out of this meeting but seeing this man's stomach. And I'm sorry, I'm no better than a man, and I know it, but this boy's constantly playing a monster. He just got done with Daredevil Born Again, murdering people there too. And also, he's such a poser because he's not chained up to the wall. Why is he back there like this? He moves forward. He does not need to pose against the wall. He could also just sit on his bed. Whatever, man's fine as hell. Bruno and Enid are kidnapped, and Thing is locked in his suitcase, well, his apartment suitcase. We later see Enid and Bruno are tied up and under a bunch of different knives and blades. The Lago Clock Tower, where we're currently at, is a massive set. The structure is all steel and has a working elevator. To make the blades not kill Enid and Bruno, Wednesday has to learn the code that's in these vintage books, these very, very vintage books. Wednesday mentions that there's Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, and Dante there. Amongst the books, we get to see Mary Shelley's collection, The Last Man, Volume 2 and 3, and Faulkner, Volume 1 and 3, her final novel, The Fortune of Perkin Warbeck, Matilda and Lador, and Valperga. Dickens' Child's History of England and Christmas Stories, Dombey and Son, Barnaby Rudge and Edwin Drood, and the life and characters of Dickens. We see Marcel Proust. She mentions Russian author Leo Tolstoy, who made War and Peace. She then goes on to mention H.G. Wells. Then out of nowhere drops Babysitter's Club, and I don't know if this copy of Babysitter's Club is necessarily a clue, but 131 covers a dramatic storyline where Mary Ann and her family experience a house fire that destroys their home, and they have to deal with survival in the aftermath of the fire. And the story covers how Mary Ann will cope with loss and if her family will actually move away. On the cover it says, "Can Mary Ann rise from the ashes?" which I think gives more hints that the new principal is behind a lot more than we are led to believe. Seeing as his powers involve fire and he may be the one that was experimented on and he's trying to hide his past, but Wednesday's just snooping a little too much for comfort. Enid then asks how many of them are there, and Wednesday says this is issue 131, and she responds, "That's all of them unless you're counting the graphic novels," which is actually true. This is the final book for the main Babysitter's Club series before the Friends Forever series. Of the H.G. Wells collection, it's missing the Invisible Man, which is the code to stop the knives from falling, and lo and behold, we get our own invisible woman? It's Agnes, the 13-year-old fangirl, the manuscript fire, and this was all of her, and honestly, I hate her for it, but she's gonna be very helpful in solving the Galpin mystery. And just when you thought it was enough, and enough was enough, and we were done, we then see the loose zombie killing the driving instructor, which is great. Great news. Murder a zombie, just what we need. And then we move on to the third episode. Episode 3 is titled Call of the Woe, and for this little title sequence, we get a little tent because we're going camping. We learn that the more Slurp eats, the more human he becomes. He's growing back his brain, and Pugsley befriends this zombie, which I feel like is a bad idea. Maybe that's just me, Pugsley. We learned that Bianca's mom was part of a cult called Morning Song, and we learned about them last season. They created a self-help app that essentially just scammed people out of their money, and Bianca's mom was married to Gideon, the leader of Morning Song, and now she's basically hiding and on the run from them while everything's going down. So now Wednesday is headed to the school's overnight camping trip so she can wander and find the bullpen and find some evidence or a lead connected to Galpin and Bradbury's murder. As they head to the campgrounds, aka Camp Jericho, I Walk by a Zombie begins playing, which perfectly fits the theme, you know, a camp trip where a zombie is on the loose. It turns out the camp has been double booked. The camp leader Ron Kruger is played by Anthony Michael Hall. So now Nevermore students and the Phoenix cadets are now competing for the camp, and this feels like the rowing tournament that we got in the first season. The cadets get the Zephyr, and the Nevermore calls in the Hounds, which are Bruno and Enid, and they run in on all fours. According to Netflix, to achieve the four-legged werewolf galloping, stunt performers were attached to suspended wire rigs, and this allowed them to actually run on the ground at a faster pace. Then we hear Ride of the Valkyries and our iconic girl walks through the gas unaffected and races back to the lookout post. It turns out here, Jenna Ortega actually performed this Zephyr-winning zipline stunt herself, which go off, Jenna. And she wins the camp for Nevermore. Yay! Forget about those normies. Then we get a cover for Bad Moon Rising, and it's sung by Chicago Oscar winner Catherine Zeta-Jones. So of course, why not have her sing? According to the music supervisors, they wanted to find a moment for her to sing in season 2 alongside Billie Piper, and here it was. Wednesday arrives at the cabin and discovers all the evidence Galpin had been collecting. All of these outcasts are actually linked to Lois, which again we'll get into at the end of episode 4. Wednesday and Morticia decided to duel with blindfolds in the woods to settle their ongoing feud this last couple episodes, and the famous Barcelona architect Antoni Gaudi actually inspired these swords. The handguards of the weapons actually share Gaudi's signature spindles and twisted lines. The episode ends with Wednesday losing to her mom but stopping the zombie who has already killed at least one person already, and this is the cover of Losing My Religion by R.E.M. Then it's revealed that Christina Ricci is back as Marilyn Thornhill, but she's being transferred to Willow Hill where Tyler's at, so bad news bears all around. This is a bad idea. We move into the final episode for part 1, episode 4, titled If These Woes Couldn't Talk, and Marilyn, now having been transferred to Willow Hill, she divulges a cryptic rumor that Willow Hill has been experimenting on their patients, which we later find out is actually true, and Fairburn jokes back there's also alien autopsies in the basement, and I wouldn't necessarily call them aliens or autopsies, but y'all do got something going on. Fairburn allows Thornhill to see Tyler face to face, and he practically seethes, begging to kill her, almost killing her, and clearly she's very delusional about their dynamic, thinking he still loves her like a mommy. Then we meet Grandma Hester Frump, played by Joanna Lumley from Everything But Girl. You know I know her from Absolutely Fabulous. There's only so many times that Wednesday actually smiles, but I like that both her grandma and when we're first introduced to Uncle Fester in season 1 both make her smile just massively. According to Netflix, Grandma Hester Frump's style, especially her hair, is largely influenced by Daphne Guinness. During the scene, Grandma has Wednesday sniff the urn and she can smell all these hints of animals, but no human remains at all, so someone has all those outcasts that have been pretending to be dead somewhere probably still alive. You can see Grandma has a fine martini in this insanely thin and tall glass shaped just like her and Morticia, and the crew tried 36 different glasses allegedly before finding this perfect one, and I also think she's drinking a slightly, more thematic Bloody Mary, you know what I'm saying? Grandma then buys the cemetery for Wednesday and later will give her the death certificates of the outcasts, and it confirms Augustus Stonehurst had signed the death certificates, who is still living at Willow Hill. Then Uncle Fester arrives, played by Fred Armisen. Literally everyone's returning or just new big people in the second season. Wednesday needs him to sneak into Willow Hill, and this is where we learn a little bit more about Aunt Ophelia.
Aunt Ophelia was in there? When?
Years ago, but she'd already flown the coop by the time I got committed. I stuck around for a few weeks. They had a top-notch electroshock therapist, Igor. He ran a gulag in Siberia.
We're learning that Ophelia dipped that hospital, so she's been just missing this entire time. Fester also mentioned that Igor was operating the electroshock table, which has got to be a reference to Igor, the hunchbacked assistant to Frankenstein. Uncle Fester purposefully gets himself committed by acting out, which is very funny to me. He's listening to I Wanna Know What Love Is by Foreigner, and I just like how he's just making himself look like a Looney Tune. What's even funnier is in this line about him having 13 passports and 33 licenses and learning that Fred Armisen posed for every one of these photos. And my favorite is also Fester Fiesta. Of course it would be. We learned from Morticia during her sophomore year at Nevermore, Ophelia was found screaming in the quad with black tears streaming down her cheeks. Ophelia had pushed her psychic abilities just too far and was sent away. And Morticia was aware that her sister's condition would deteriorate at Willow Hill, but her concerns fell on deaf ears, ultimately because the grandma had Ophelia committed. When Grandma then demands Goody's book be given back to Wednesday, she tosses it in the fire, and we don't know how much damage that will actually do, but it may be something we return to in part 2. From Morticia's face though, you can tell she regrets throwing it into that fire in the first place. While Fester's going through it happily, Dean Martin's Ain't That a Kick in the Head plays, which is great for, I guess an insane asylum. In Fester's brain scan, we see a bullet and several nails, perhaps the nail gun Wednesday threatened Agnes with, a razor blade, scissors, a fish hook, and a paper clip, and there's also something stuck up his nose. Then he meets the lunch lady, and he gets her name mistaken for Lois because of all the food just splattered on her name tag, but then when it's wiped away it says Louise, and then he makes out with her. He's living his best life. I can't be mad about it. Wednesday chases the hooded figure into the music room, and also there's a cage of songbirds in the music room, so is she an avian or not? I don't know. Dr. Fairburn says that music soothes the savage beast, which sounds like she wants to use Capri's lessons as part of Tyler's therapy. We finally meet Augustus Stonehurst. He hangs out in a cage with birds. fitting. We learn later from Professor Orloff he was a normie professor at Nevermore. We also learned that he had a wife who died before he got to Nevermore, but he had a daughter whom he built an aviary for in Iago Tower. Wednesday sneaks into Willow Hill and we get a piano cover of Zombie by the Cranberries, which of course is still very fitting seeing as Slurp's escaping. Now on their search to find Lois, Slurp starts attacking the guards. Thornhill and Wednesday cross paths but continue on their way, and the sirens alarm and Wednesday and Fester find where they're keeping the outcast. This is what Sheriff Galpin was afraid would happen to Tyler. So this is when it's revealed that the stalker, Avian, is actually Judy. The Judy reveal scene was actually filmed on the actress's first day on set, and regardless of all of that, it's revealed that her father, Augustus Stonehurst, was experimenting on outcasts to try to contain their abilities and offer them to normies. Let's break it down. So Lois isn't a person, but a project. Long-term outcast integration study. Judy's father wanted to become a Da Vinci with telekinetic abilities, but his body couldn't handle it, and he ended up being a patient at this facility. Before he messed himself up, he experimented on his daughter, and she successfully turned herself into an avian. Insane. What was going on with these families in the show? Wednesday helps this woman who she thought was Lois, and I think this woman will be revealed to be Ophelia somehow in part 2. I think when she disappeared from Willow Hill, she was actually just abducted by Stonehurst. Now with unhinged Tyler, he offers Thornhill a head start to outrun him, and let me tell you, I've seen better running from a toddler. Girl, the urgency here, it just was not there. Fun fact, for hide scenes, they actually have stunt performers use crutches and aluminum stilts. Just a little fun fact. What's interesting is Thornhill mentioned that they can't kill their masters, but Goff told Netflix when you kill your master, a Hyde will eventually go crazy. So for part 2, we'll be getting a completely unhinged, free rampant Hyde just running around. Then we learn that Augustus and Slurp knew each other. In the teaser for part 2, we see a better looking Slurp, so he'll be more human, more talkative. Maybe we'll hear from him how close they actually were. However, right now, he's killing Stonehurst, which I'm sure will piss off Judy. Then, perfect, just what we need. The Hyde confronts Wednesday and smacks her out the window. Wednesday's window stunt was explained by Netflix and took a lot of work. A horizontal window was built on a soundstage and Jenna Ortega was suspended above it. Then she was dropped through and the window was made out of glass sugar, which was crumbly, like a cookie texture. And the rocky ground Wednesday actually falls onto is made of high compression rubber. So, you know, Jenna Ortega's safe, Wednesday's in a coma. Netflix has already given us a part 2 teaser and we know that Wednesday is in a coma after this incident and all hell is breaking loose with more zombies in it, I assume turning into that werewolf. And of course, Tyler's just hanging out. Part 2 drops September 3rd with the final 4 episodes for this season and there are so many storylines to close. The grandma and Ophelia, who's been missing for 20 years, and will her downfall look anything like Wednesday's? What the hell is Tyler gonna be doing? Is he coherent enough to search for Wednesday as a Hyde? Is Slurp a good zombie or a bad zombie? Because I still can't tell. Is Judy still after Wednesday or will she try to find who killed her father instead? The woman that Wednesday broke out of Willow Hill, who really is she? Is she Ophelia? Is she even a good guy? And can someone please point me in the way of Fester Fiesta? He owes me $20. Comment down below your thoughts on Wednesday season 2 part 1, where you think they're gonna go in part 2, and follow me at Lulu_Clemons. And a big thank you to Noah Chen who helped me write season 2 part 1. This was an insane wild ride. There's so many Easter eggs, so many details, and thank you to Netflix for like sharing a lot of them. Subscribe to all of our channels in the New Rockstars Network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.